I now call Mark McDonald. You've got 4 minutes, but you could maybe push it to 5.
Oh gosh. The pressure now, presiding officer, to give Gavin Brown time to collect his thoughts for his summing up speech and perhaps give him some content for it as well. Who knows? I think there are a few things that need to be highlighted, and I think the committee took a great deal of evidence in a very short space of time, and I think that it was very interesting, some of the evidence that we did receive. Jackie Bailey spoke about if this was just a bill designed to generate more revenue. I think that belies the fact that the genesis of this bill was firstly to ensure that there wasn't a detrimental impact as a consequence of a policy change taking place at a UK level, and secondly to ensure protection for first-time buyers against buy-to-let investment. I think one of the things that I pointed out in an intervention to Gavin Brown, and I think I became slightly frustrated by during the course of the evidence taking, was that an awful lot of certainty was being drawn from supposition and anecdotal evidence when there didn't seem to be a lot of hard data and empirical evidence backing it up. And that made it, I think, very difficult for the committee to reach a true value judgment on some of the issues that were being raised with us by some of the witnesses who came before the committee. And that's why I think, as Gavin Brown says, I think the notion of getting some more data that can really be the bedrock for analysis of impacts on the housing market is absolutely critical and important. And I think as this policy rolls out alongside LBTT itself over a period of time, once you have the opportunity to essentially bottom out forestalling effects and other variations, I think that will then give us a better idea of impact and perhaps help us to build a slightly better picture of what is happening in relation to the housing market. In terms of reliefs, I think that the committee report, and we had some discussion around how we lay it out, but the committee report does go into some great detail about the range of reliefs that have been suggested from various quarters. And I think that there are a number of risks inherent with any system of relief that is brought in, that it runs the risk of creating significant loopholes, which could then undermine the policy intention of the legislation. So I think the committee has very properly asked the Scottish Government for its view on the basket of reliefs, but at the same time has focused on a couple of specific reliefs that it feels are necessary, and I think the Deputy First Minister has responded very fairly to those suggestions. The third issue that I've sort of wrestled with and looked at is, and I mentioned it in the evidence taking at committee, is around the flexibility that the current process that we go through in Parliament affords to the Scottish Government. It doesn't necessarily relate specifically to this piece of legislation, but I think in general terms, if we look at the flexibility that is afforded to the Scottish Government in terms of reacting to tax change or announcing tax changes versus that which is afforded to the Chancellor, who can stand up at the dispatch box and announce a change that will take effect at midnight that evening, should he so choose to do so, versus the Scottish Government, which, under the processes that are agreed through Parliament, has to essentially signal its intentions some months in advance of changes taking place. And the opportunity that that process allows for behavioural change and forestalling to take place versus that which exists at Westminster, I think is something that does need to be explored in more detail in future, perhaps by a successor committee from the Finance Committee, but also I think it would be welcome in the next Parliament, I think, to get some more thinking from the Scottish Government around that as well. I think that the main thrust of this, I think, is first and foremost that first-time buyers have to be protected in terms of the purchases that they make, and I see that despite being told I could push it to 5 minutes, I'm now being told to hurry up, so I will do so, presiding officer. But one of the things I noted in terms of the intentions of LBTT when it was first introduced was to stimulate purchase at the lower end of the market, and anecdotally from estate agents locally in my constituency, we are seeing a stimulation of the market at the lower end, which was the intention. So I'm confident that that is happening, but I think this is a necessary measure to ensure that that is protected. Thank you, presiding officer.